It's the Eclectic Monk, brought to you by OK Fine, the new dating app for the socially hesitant. Do you enjoy long periods of awkward silence with complete strangers? Then OK Fine may be the app for you. And here's your host, the Eclectic Monk. Welcome, fellow travelers. Here we are, traveling well, episode 22. Can you believe it's been a year since we started this journey together? I can't, but it has been. And somehow along the way, I managed to turn 60. I'm not sure how that happened either. I guess I am getting close to being real retirement age. But, we're enjoying the debt-free life. I'm still driving a school bus. Got some insurance. Trying to be a positive influence on about 90 kids Monday through Friday, except for all these cool breaks that I get. And it's gardening season now, so we're starting to get the garden going and enjoying my grandkids, enjoying my wife, enjoying my life. And that's what really matters. Somehow or another in this last year, Jamie and I have managed to travel a lot. We've seen a lot of different things. And in this episode, we are going to show you Milledgeville, Georgia. Now, Milledgeville was the antebellum capital of the state of Georgia. That's right. Before the capital moved to Atlanta after the war, it was in Milledgeville, which is down in the middle of the state on the Oconee River, kind of east of Macon. And I'd never actually been there. I'd been to the fringes once, 40 years ago, but I've never been there to explore it. And so we decided this year that we were going to go down. And so we stayed in the historic home. We toured the old governor's mansion. We toured the Georgia State Central State Hospital, which was at one time the largest mental health facility in the world. It's mostly abandoned now. Kind of a spooky and sad place, but really interesting story. And then we traveled home through Warm Springs and went to FDR's Little White House, which is a great place to visit. If you've never been there, you should check it out. And in the episode, I've got a couple other little special things I've created and want to drop in for you, just for your entertainment, and I hope you'll enjoy those. But overall, life for me is really good. I hope life for you is going as good as it is for me. Remember, travel well. Enjoy the journey. Don't slow down, even if your knee gives out. And remember, you're deeply, deeply loved by the God that created you. Let's keep journeying together. 1 year behind us, another year ahead of us. I'll see you the next time. Thanks. So our Milledgeville adventure began at the Rockwell House, built in 1838 by Colonel Samuel Rockwell. It's a really cool old house that nearly burnt down in 1969. They were removing paint with a blowtorch and caught the roof on fire. But in 2019, the current owners began a full restoration of the house. They've done an amazing job. Now, I'm not going to say it's the most comfortable bed I ever slept in, and that back staircase we had to climb down was like going up and down a ladder. But the floating staircase in the front was absolutely amazing. The floors were beautiful, the house was cool, and you really felt like you were part of history when you were in this old house. We enjoyed our stay there. In the middle of town is the Memory Hill Cemetery, started in 1803. Several former governors, prominent politicians, the author Flannery O'Connor is buried there. It's just a cool old cemetery. We like cool old cemeteries. I know, it's weird, but we like them. Just around the corner from there is the old governor's mansion, built in 1839. It was the seat of power and the home of the governor from 1839 to 1868, when the capital moved from Milledgeville to Atlanta after the war. It was a really great experience. Our docent was named Cooper, and he was fantastic. We had a really good time. And one of the cool things he told us was that the house is decorated like it was in 1851 because they had taken an inventory, a very detailed inventory that year, and so they knew exactly what was in it, exactly where it was, and they were able to exactly replicate this house from 1851. Pretty amazing. And again, the restoration that they did back in 2001 was really fantastic. You should go check out this old governor's mansion. Right down the road is the Oconee Greenway Park. And here we found the ruins of a grist mill that was built in 1892. In the early 1900s, converted to an electric dam. And it was the first source of electricity for the city of Milledgeville. And there it sits on the Oconee River to this day. It's in ruins. It's really cool to see that piece of history. Milledgeville was full of history, and we really enjoyed our visit there. I'll definitely go back. Can't believe I've never really been there before. There's a lot to explore, and I would certainly encourage you to go check it out. Oh, and it just happens to be the place where Oliver Hardy of Laurel and Hardy decided to go into acting as he was running the projector at the first movie theater in Milledgeville. How about that? This is a human story. The Georgia Lunatic and Epileptic Asylum opened in 1842. At its peak in the mid-1960s, they had over 12,000 patients and 200 buildings on over 1,700 acres. In 2016, they closed their doors to the general public, but it is still a hospital. There's about 200 patients there who are referred by the justice system for custodial care. As you ride around this abandoned campus and you look at these decaying buildings, you can't help but feel the desperation, the frustration that echoes from their halls. The stories of Milledgeville are mostly negative. Brutal treatments, terrible hardships and abuses of the people. But the real fact is, they were always understaffed, underfunded. There were not enough doctors, there were not enough helpers. And the ones who were there did the best they could to help as many as they could. And the people just kept coming. And so for all of its faults, all of its failures, one can't help but remember, at least they tried to help. And when you ride through the major cities of America today and see the mentally ill lying on the streets, alone, desperate, with nowhere to go, you have to ask, was Central State Hospital really so bad? So this is Gordon, Georgia. My grandmother grew up here. My mom actually lived here the first 4 years of her life until my granddad got back from World War II. It sits right between Milledgeville and Macon, and there's not much to see there. My aunts are all gone, my people are all gone, but my roots, well, my roots are definitely here in Gordon, Georgia.
This is preeminently the time to speak the truth, the whole truth, frankly and boldly. Nor need we shrink from honestly facing conditions in our country today. This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. In every dark hour of our national life, a leadership of frankness and of vigor has met with that understanding and support of the people themselves which is essential to victory. And I am convinced that you will again give that support to leadership in these critical days.
Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate, of the House of Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Fulton Lewis, Jr. speaking from the Mutual Studios in New York City. This nation has suffered this day a staggering loss. At this moment at Warm Springs, Georgia, President Franklin D. Roosevelt lies with the problems of the nation finally lifted from his shoulders, stricken late this afternoon with cerebral hemorrhage. He passed away before his physicians could be of any assistance, if assistance in such a case is possible at all. Vice President Harry Truman, who from here on will be President Truman, went immediately to the White House. A special cabinet meeting was called, and we should know more about what is going to happen in Washington as the evening wears on. But Franklin D. Roosevelt, the first president to be elected for 4 terms in the White House, has passed away, and that is the overshadowing of all news events that have happened or can happen for quite a while.
So there's something about turning 60 that makes you want to revisit your old haunts, and this is John McEachern High School, and that's Russell Hall. Now, I went to chemistry in Russell Hall. It's the administration building now. As I look around the campus, there's only a handful of buildings that are still there from when I was there, class of 1981. The music facility is gone. But that used to be the administration building and the senior classrooms. And next to it was the junior classrooms and the library. And back there was Mackland Hall, the freshman classrooms, where I used to flirt with Renee Cadner and irritate Coach Davis. Sophomore classes, I guess, were in the John McEachern building, which isn't there anymore. I don't know. I didn't actually go to McEachern my sophomore year, but that's a different story. But there's Chief We Want to Win a Game, and we did want to win a game. We were 0-10 my senior year. Go Indians. Right down the street was the neighborhood I grew up in. We actually lived in 3 houses in the same neighborhood. This is the first one on Weston Drive. I recently asked my mom, why did we move from that first house? And she said, I have no idea. But we did. We moved up the street and around the corner to this house on Glen Street. But we only stayed there about a year. It was built on a slab, and my dad had artificial hips, and apparently it bothered them. So we moved down the street to this house, where we lived for about 5 years. When I think of home, this is the house I think of. It's the longest I ever lived in a single place until I got married. And it was here that my childhood abruptly ended when my dad decided to leave. But it's home. So this is the spot where it happened, the infamous bird bath incident. I lived about 3 doors up that way. Earl lived right here. That's where the bird bath was that my neighbor, Mark, decided to steal one night. Now, I was standing here on the edge of these woods, and this was all dense woods at the time. There were no houses back there. All there was trees and a barbed wire fence. I was standing there urinating. It was summertime. It was dark. I knew if I went inside, I'd have to stay inside. I didn't want to do that. And so my friend Mark, as I'm here busy, walks up behind me with Earl's bird bath. Now, we all knew Earl was a drunk, and he was mean. I told Mark, go put it back. Put it back now. I had nothing to do with it. I never touched the bird bath. I want that to be absolutely clear. That didn't matter, because about the time we stood there and argued about it for a minute, all of a sudden Earl came out of his house with a shotgun and said, "Boys, don't move." Well, being 10, we didn't move. We walked back up. He said, "Come here." We came here, and he held a shotgun on us. And he said, "I've called the police." I said, "Oh no." Oh, did I mention that my dad's boss and his wife were at my house having dinner that night? They were. Maybe one of the reasons we hadn't get called in yet. Anyway, as we're sitting there waiting with Earl pointing a shotgun at us, suddenly down this street there came both Powder Springs police officers, a Cobb County police officer, and a Georgia State patrolman, because two 10-year-old boys had stolen a bird bath. This is before 911. I'm sure Earl called 0, got the operator, and the operator was probably some local woman who dialed us into the police station, who knew everyone. It was a small town back then. And as they came rushing down, I'll never forget, I was terrified. This gigantic policeman walked up beside me, put his gigantic hand on my shoulder with his gigantic gun right next to my ear and said, "Where do you live, son?" I said, "I live right up here." He walked me home. We walked up on the carport, and I was hoping that I could get my mom to come out and talk to the police officer. I said, "Wait right here." And the gigantic police officer strolled right into my house, into the living room, where my father and mother and my father's boss and his wife were sitting talking. And he explained that I had been part of an infamous bird bath theft ring down the street. And of course, I was immediately sent to bed, and I believe I'm still on restriction. I'm pretty sure Mom said I was restricted for the rest of my life, but it all blew over. In retrospect, I think I know what happened. I think Earl was drunk. Earl called the police station in Powder Springs, and the dispatcher said, "Oh no, Earl's got a gun on two little kids." When the dispatch went out, it wasn't that it was overkill because of the bird bath, it was overkill because of the shotgun. I think the officers were a lot more worried about us than they were worried about Earl and his bird bath. And so I have a deep respect and thanks for the Powder Springs policeman who came and saved me that night. But again, I never touched the bird bath. I had absolutely nothing to do with the bird bath. I was just standing right here, taking a leak in those woods. True story. So this is Mr. Brooks' house. Now, Mr. Brooks had a lake. You can see it right behind the house. And this was right next to the neighborhood I grew up in. And we were always told that if you went over and tried to fish in Mr. Brooks' lake, he had a shotgun loaded with rock salt, and he would shoot you. Now, to be fair, I never actually heard of anyone being shot by Mr. Brooks, but it was certainly an effective deterrent because we never tried to go fish, even though I always wanted to go over there and throw a line into Mr. Brooks' lake. It's sad because the house is falling down now, and I'm sure Mr. Brooks went home a long time ago. I can feel the wind upon my shoulders as the breeze from heaven fills the sails, and I hear the voice of Jesus calling. It's time for me to go, so fare thee well. fare thee well, my brothers, don't be saddened. Though in this moment I must travel on, don't lose heart as you press towards that horizon. There'll be time enough for laughter when we're old. There'll be time enough for laughter when we're old. I can see your eyes, they shine and glisten, and I see the sadness in your smiles. But I know that you will always listen to the one who carries us the final mile. So fare thee well, my brothers, don't be saddened. Oh, in this moment I must travel on. Don't lose heart as you press towards that horizon. There'll be time enough for laughter when we're old. There'll be time enough for laughter when we're old. This episode of The Eclectic Monk was brought to you by the latest fragrance from Le Pew of Paris, smelling like chemicals and cupcakes with just a hint of equine perspiration. See you next time.